Welcome into Stone Cold Stros, episode 21 of season 2. I'm Brandon Strange. I'm joined by Charlie Palillo and Josh Jordan. Read Charlie's column weekly on sportsmap.com. Follow him on X at Palillo. Read Josh's work daily on sportsmap.com and follow him on X at Josh Jordan 975. Guys, I say it every week, but what a difference a month makes now. The Astros, look, Let's start with the pitching on how they have really just turned this around. And by turn around, I mean going from 10 games back to now knocking on Seattle's door for the division lead here. Let's start with the pitching. Astros at the end of that Mets series don't get their typical Blanco performance, but the offense picks them up late in that game. And then in the opener of this Toronto series, Hunter Brown keeps his dominance going. 1 run over his last 5 starts. Look, they are walking a tightrope with depth right now with pitching and just availability of guys. What are you seeing, Charlie, that's allowing them to walk this razor's edge right now?
First off, not for those pesky licensing fees, we could have used as entry music today. Good Times, a little tribute to the Cars there. They're just now doing the stuff that over the last years the Astros routinely did. If the right didn't get you, the left would. If the left didn't get you, the right would. Their earned run average in June was the best in the American League at 3.54. You know what? The Astros earned run average in May was 3.62, barely higher. March, that season started the 28th through April, the earned run average was 5.01. So the pitching was horrible the first month. All the bullpen meltdowns, iffy starting pitching. It was just a lousy pitching staff. Stabilized in May, excelled in June, and, we'll presume he's going to get back in the rotation at some point after the All-Star break. If he pitches reasonably well upon return, people are going to start saying, hey, that Justin Verlander, he reminds you of Hunter Brown, as opposed to the other way around. Hunter Brown largely junking that 4-seam fastball, at least as his primary fastball. It has absolutely 180 the guy's season, 180 the guy's career, and he's just been magnificent, right? American League Pitcher of the Month with a 1.16 earned run average, and so why not start July with 6 scoreless innings against a weak, but not absolutely pathetic Toronto Blue Jays offense. So Hunter Brown, absolutely A1 in terms of June's pitching excellence. Blanco hasn't been super duper crisp every time out, but you know what? He hasn't gotten bombarded in one start this season. So at minimum, he's going to keep you in the game start, if not quality every time out over the last 6-8 starts. Then where they've been a little bit off, Arrigetti's been in and out. Bipolar pitching Fromber, inning to inning, much less game to game. They weren't able to overcome him Friday night in New York. But overall, right, the offense boomed, and we'll get into that in more detail. And, one of the biggest early season bugaboos, the bullpen part of it, but it was just always something. If you got good pitching, you'd figure out how to lose 3-2. If you hit well, you'd blow it and lose 7-6. Right over the first 2 months, they lost 6 games. They led after 7 innings. Came close to doing it Saturday, but didn't do it Saturday. The Astros haven't played a 1-run game now in 3. So if you're going to suck at 1-run games, don't play any more 1-run games. They're also 6-9 in 2-run games. If Hader doesn't give up the home run Monday in the 9th inning, that would have been another 3-run win. So not only Astros just winning, they're winning with relative ease during this stretch now of 10 wins in 11 games. But the bullpen, Taylor Scott certainly gets high commendation. Hader's been by and large excellent now for over a month. Abreu, he dances through the raindrops sometimes, but his overall numbers have been outstanding for over a month. And even Presley's, generally speaking, cleaned it up in recent weeks. So they're just back to being a really good ball club. And Brandon, you touched upon it, the tight wire of the depth of the starting rotation. And you know what? You play the course. In this stretch, they've had a nice sprinkle of off days. They're going to have stretches in the second half where they play 18 days in a row, 16 days in a row, 13 days in a row. And if you go with a 4-man rotation with an iffy guy or two, and then the bullpen day, that's asking a lot. Well, one of the things you ask is for the offense to clobber people. And they're doing that with more regularity now.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited with the pitching to think that Luis Garcia might be back here in a few weeks. You know, he's expected to take another step forward, go down to Corpus Christi, hopefully throw a couple innings. That'll be huge if you get him back. Lance McCullers, maybe 3 weeks after him. I know it's Lance McCullers. I'm not I'm not betting the farm on that, but it is what it is. He's scheduled to come back. And then you look at Verlander, he's starting to throw the ball around a little bit. That's what you need. And if you get, starts from Sean Dubin, if he can come in a pinch and give you 3-4 innings, I mean, there's not a lot more you can ask for there. That, Fromber's kind of the one concerning, element in this. He's given up at least 5 runs in 2 of his last 4 starts. And when he starts getting frustrated, I notice with him, he just rears back and tries to throw it as hard as he can. When he gets lit up, you can expect a 98-mile-an-hour fastball coming from Fromber after that, just out of just anger and disappointment. But that's not what got him to where he is. It's about focusing on hitting your spots, trying to get guys to hit the ball into the ground. So we've seen a lot of that with Fromber, where he just tries to throw it past guys when he gets frustrated, but right down the middle. And we know big league hitters, these guys can time bullets. You gotta get them off balance. You got to work in your breaking stuff, but we know Fromber's pedigree. We think he'll be okay. So if he's kind of your main concern, and in an Arrighetti where he's just a rookie, you don't know what to expect from him from start to start, you're in a good position here. It's great to see what the Astros are doing. I am a little concerned though, seems like Hader gives up a home run every other appearance. I know that's not exactly the case, but I don't want to be too hard on him, because at least he's throwing fastballs and trying to get ahead in counts when he has a few runs to play with. That's what we want him to do. You don't want him walking guys and getting into big innings. If he gives up a first pitch home run when you have a cushy lead, not the end of the world there. And like you mentioned with Abreu, the 0-2 pitch the other day against the Mets, and he gives up the home run, and really close to coughing up the game on Monday as well. But he's got great stuff, and he's been used a lot. So I like to give Abreu the benefit of the doubt. That guy's pitched a lot of innings already this year, and they're going to need him for more. But overall, you got to love what you're seeing from the pitching, especially if you look at what could be coming back, not that far in the distant future. And then the trade deadline, they may go get an arm there as well.
Yeah.
Hey, Hader has history of giving up dingers. He gave up 15 in 75 innings in a season in which he actually had a decent ERA a few years ago. As you referenced, Josh, if you're hard and straight, major league hitters can turn it around on it some. I just wanted to amplify on Fromber, who's so exasperating, including to himself. I'm starting to think Fromber Valdez may not win a Gold Glove during his career. And when it goes, I mean, it goes completely. That was just a stupid flip try at the plate the other night. But the Angels game, right? It was one inning where homer, line drive. Really one inning in the Mets game where it just fully eroded. But that the Mets knocked him around. Good starting pitchers every once in a while, they're going to get wrapped. And the Mets were the best offense in baseball until the last 2 days of June. So they've been doing a lot of damage against a lot of people. But even when he gets cuffed, I forget the opponent when he gave up 3 in the first, and you're like, oh, it's a bad Fromber night. He gave up nothing after that. He still gives you innings almost every time out, and that is very critical in a rotation that, as a rubber band, is being stretched pretty far.
Yeah, we talked about it the other day, Josh, on our bonus episode, how sometimes you can have sometimes a guy you haven't seen works well against the opposition. Blue Jays come in on Monday with Uriel Rodriguez and shut the Astros down outside of a Jeremy Pena home run. And thankfully, Jordan Late tacks on those insurance runs, which, as you noted, was super huge considering Josh Hader giving up that dinger in the bottom of the inning. Look, Astros had the best record in all MLB in June, have won 10 of their last 11. Just as a side note, I saw some Mets fans talking about how the series should have been a sweep. And I don't know how that was. New York was fighting from behind the entire game on the series finale. Josh, you talked about some of the injuries. Just catch everybody up on some of those before we get to the offense here. Dana Brown on the pregame show talked about how they've got Luis Garcia. He's up to throwing 93, 94 now on his first, some of his early forays into pitching off the mound. And so they're excited about his progress. He projects into July, early August for Luis Garcia. Jake Bloss may get one more pen before he does a rehab start, or he just may go straight to a rehab start. So it looks like his shoulder inflammation, he's coming back from that well. You mentioned JV playing catch from 60 feet. Dana Brown mentioned he still doesn't have the strength back, so they're going to expand his toss length until they get comfortable with that, and so he can start throwing again. And then Tucker, swinging off a tee, still sore. I thought it was interesting. They talked about how they're continuing to get MRIs to look at what's going on there as the swelling subsides, but he's still got pain there. So working out, but not really doing, a lot of baseball activities outside of swinging off that tee. Charlie, how much more amazing is it that this team is doing this without one of their quality sluggers? And it seems like it's coming from top to bottom in this lineup. You're getting timely hits. They saw a stat that coming into Monday's game, in his last 15 games, John Singleton, 12 of 43, hitting for 279 and a 354 on base. He's kind of an antithesis of parts of this lineup where some of the guys are, are good hitters, not necessarily always patient. He's kind of the antithesis of that. He's a very patient hitter, not always a good hitter, but has been on a nice run. Talk about how the contributions from up and down this lineup, even getting a late RBI from Chaz in that series finale against the Mets, has really helped buoy buoy's not the right word, help them to maintain this white hot streak they're on.
Well, Wednesday will mark 1 month since Kyle Tucker last played. I mean, at this point, who's going to be shocked if it turns out there was some sort of hairline fracture in there, and that the swelling, even a bad bone bruise shouldn't take a month. But if it does, it does. But Kyle Tucker was by far their best offensive player this season when he went down. I put in the most recent Sports Map column, I don't think he needs to familiarize himself with Wally Pipp. The guy who had a headache, got benched. A kid named Lou Gehrig went in and played, and Wally Pipp was never seen again. Kyle Tucker's going to go right back into the lineup in right field every day, batting third or clean up wherever a spot places him. But you lose Tucker, and all you got from Verlander in June was 2 poor starts. 5 innings, 4 earned runs in each of them before I guess he owned up to, my neck's not right and my arm's attached to my neck. So that, where the Astros were at the May, he said, you're about to lose Kyle Tucker for almost the entire month, and Verlander's going to give you 2 poor starts, and then he's gone for the entire month. There've been a lot of, maybe 2024 is just not the Astros year. But as we talked about, when they were at their nadir points, 7 and 19, and then again 12 under 500 at 12 and 20, there's a lot of season. A lot of time for worms to turn. That can be good or bad, but specifically with the offense, which simply was not good in May. Mentioned earlier, the pitching was fine in May. The offense is why they only went 15 and 14. Well, in June, to join a pitching staff that posted the best ERA in the American League, the Astros put up the best offensive numbers in the American League, averaging nearly 5.5 runs per game after averaging barely over 4 runs per game. That's a huge difference. And, back in the day, there were the killer bees. I'm going to call them the alpha A's, right? It doesn't end, but it starts with Altuve and Alvarez. In May, Jose Altuve had his worst calendar month since 2013 in the batter's box. He was awful. He had 237. His OPS was sub 600. Well, he went back to being Jose Altuve in June. 333 batting average, OPS near 900. Yordan Alvarez in May, in terms of run production, was a weakling. For the entire month, he had 2 home runs, 4 RBI. OPS wasn't terrible at 776, but certainly sub Yordan. Well, in June, 7 homers, 19 runs batted in, OPS over 1,100. So your 2 best players, with Kyle Tucker out of the mix, certainly got back to being your 2 best players. And then there's when it's going well, the little things that, they messed that up, or the other team came up with the one key hit. Monday, most recently, Jeremy Pena hadn't homered in 141 at-bats. He'd been a horrific offensive player for over a month and a half. And until the insurance home run from Yordan in the 9th, that was it. And maybe if it was only 1-0, Josh Hader doesn't give up a I don't want to say token homer, but maybe he's sharper to start that inning. You win that game 1-0, and it's because of Jeremy Pena's home run, who's been nothing offensively for about 6 weeks. Alex Bregman, right, went off for about a month. He'd flattened out. He was 0 for 14, and then delivers the 2-out game-winning hit in the 9th inning Saturday at New York. And the one other guy who needs to be really given a doff of the cap is Yainer Diaz, who was not 2024 Martin Maldonado-esque, because Martin's digging for new lows, even by his standards. But Yainer, through May, OPS lower than where Maldonado was over his 3 years with the Astros. Well, Yainer in June, few games missed in there, where Caratini filled in with a couple of nice moments before he got hurt. But Yainer finishes June hitting .363. He hasn't homered now in nearly 70 at-bats, but that's okay when you're producing singles and doubles and some timely runs batted in, mixed in there. Right? Jake Myers fell off sharply, and then he mixes in just enough here and there. Right? Chas McCormick hasn't found it, but he had the 1-2 home run game that when your heavy lifters are doing the heavy lifting, you just get a little bit here, a little bit there from the kind of the supporting actors. You add it all up, and the Astros are back to being as potent an offense as there is in the league.
Yeah, for me, I'll just focus on the outfield quickly. Jake Myers is making so many plays out there defensively in center field. And he's been hitting pretty well. He went over on Monday, but most of the team struggled at the plate on Monday, so I'm not going to hold that against him too much. I mean, just to give you an idea, he batted second with Altuve out, and you got Bregman at leadoff. So that tells you what Espada is seeing from Jake Myers, that he wants him at the top of the order. And I just think it's interesting, too. We were seeing Lo Perfido play every day for a good chunk, and now that's kind of gone away. They seem to be going more to Trey Cabbage over the last few games, and he's looked pretty good at the plate, and he's made some plays in the outfield as well. Chas is still scuffling, but he's been in the lineup. So I'm interested to see what they do with Lo Perfido. If Singleton starts hitting better, or are we not going to, and by better, I just mean a little bit. I know he kind of is what he is at this point in his career, but we saw Lo Perfido at first base the other day. He looked okay in that game. Are they going to mix him in there? He got that big hit over the weekend, so he is doing something, but he was kind of, we talked about it in our last video, Brandon, that he'd had a few poor games in a row, and Espada responded by getting Cabbage in there. So I'm curious to see how the outfield is going to shake out, especially when Kyle Tucker returns. And then finally, one more thing on Tucker. If I remember right, he drilled a foul ball into his shin, and then he did it again on the one that he's been out for. So you have to wonder if he really just hit it right in that same spot, and he kind of injured it really twice, not just once. I wonder if that might be part of why it's taken so long for him to get back.
Yeah, it does make you wonder. And I know he took a foul ball off that same part last year as well. And so that maybe invest in a higher, taller shin pad. I'm not real sure, maybe like one of those, shin guards from MMA or something. But yeah. And look, Mauricio Dubon's also been a very timely hitter too. Where would you be at if you didn't have his bat in this lineup? And who would have thought we'd be saying that a couple of years ago? You'd be saying, thank goodness Dubon's bat is in your lineup. But 23 or 2023 and this year have been a redemption story for Mauricio Dubon. Nothing impressive, but is always up there giving you good bats outside of the last couple of games. He's a guy who tends not to strike out too much. That's turned a little bit over the past couple of performances, but you've needed that guy, whether it's coming up with a big guy, big hits and runners for scoring position, or just, keeping an inning going station to station. And that's really been one of the things that I've noticed that has kind of turned the season for them, is doing a lot more station to station, manufacturing runs, bunting, getting RBI ground outs, sacrifice flies. So they're really doing a lot of the little things to tack on runs throughout the innings, as opposed to just scoring all their runs in one inning, like we saw a little earlier before this streak. What have you seen from you talked about, Lo Perfido's use, moving guys up and down the lineup. Charlie, what have you seen with Joe Espada specifically, where you're Is there anything you're noticing from him where maybe he's managing guys a little different or responding to how batters are performing? We talked a little earlier in the season before the Abreu saga came to a finale there, how we kind of felt like he was a little painted into a corner by having to use Abreu. Now that he's got a clean canvas, so to speak, what are you noticing from the skip?
Well, yeah, it is liberating when you lose the worst player in your offense as an option or a mandate, whatever it was there at the end with Jose Abreu. I've liked Spot's willingness to move guys up and down in the lineup, subject to who's doing well. I don't even want to call it controversy with Bregman when he dropped him as low as 6. But Jeremy Pena has been somewhat on a sliding scale in the lineup where he was their cleanup hitter for a while, even when he wasn't hitting very well, but it was one of my options. Ultimately, it's very simple. Your best players need to lead the way, and the secondary guys need to fill their roles. Alvarez and Altuve playing poorly gives the Astros no chance to have a good offense. They're 2 total studs, and batting first and third, they come up more than almost everyone else in the lineup. So if they're going to be a 1-2 fail, as they were in May, you're just not going to have good offensive production. 2 guys isn't enough to have a good lineup, but if your 2 best players aren't pulling their weight, probably means you're going to have a bad lineup. And again, the manager only makes so much difference. Terry Francona is probably going to be a Hall of Fame manager. He retires in Cleveland. The Guardians have been tremendous this year. I don't think Stephen Vogt is some sort of savant. The Indians have just hit a lot better. Former Indians. Put that in the fine jar. The Guardians' offense has just gotten a lot better this year. And you can, look at other spots through history, a managerial change. Sometimes there's an initial jolt, if guys are awakened by the need to pick it up, or if, I guess, a very unpopular manager was finally let go. But in the end, it's a player's game over 162 games, whether you have a Menza or moron making the decisions in the dugout. It's not going to be a difference of 10, 15 games with that manager. Players need to do work, and the Astros players, key guys individually and the overall collectively, they have been doing work.
Yeah, just his management of the bullpen, you look a lot better when guys like Taylor Scott are pitching the way they are. I mean, they've gotten some big contributions. Seth Martinez, I know hadn't been perfect recently, but over the course of the year, he's been very good. Brian King has been somebody I've been impressed with in limited work. It's really great how they're doing this. Even Montero came in and pitched a clean inning on Monday. He was the only guy they didn't really use in that extra inning game on Sunday. So I was curious to see what are they going to do with Montero, because he's been very poor this year, but he had a clean inning, so thank goodness. So I hope you see a little more of that from him, but the numbers just don't dictate it. He's a guy where, in case of emergency, break open glass. That's kind of Montero. When it's your last option, you can go to him. He's not getting a lot of swing and miss, but that's okay. He's not a guy you're counting on that much. So I think Espada's done a good job, and just getting Fromber out of the game against the Mets the other day after he gave up 6 runs, and it was only 4 2/3 innings, but he pulled him out. He wasn't 95 pitches, so I understand that part. But then the bullpen holds him to no more runs for the rest of the game, and you win that ball game by getting Fromber out of there. So I like that Espada's like, no, you don't have it today. We're going to try and keep this thing as close as we can. We have a good bullpen. Maybe they'll keep us in this ball game, and they did. The bats came through. They came away with the series win. They start the Blue Jays series with the bullpen looking good as well. Hunter Brown looking good. This is what you wanted. This is what you knew the Astros could be this year, and they're finally hitting their stride.
Yeah, you knew they could, but you have to admit it looked like they're defying the odds in doing it, though, considering the fact that you're down so many pitchers and Kyle Tucker as well. So the fact that they're able to do this, and again, Monday's game, Altuve sitting that game. And that lineup was very strange, but it worked. And like you said, you get timely hits here and there. Manager looks like the smartest guy in the room. What I like is the fact that this does provide some flexibility for Espada to be a manager and to manage based on who's hitting well, based on merit and not necessarily based on who's getting paid the most. And Josh, to your point, I did find it very funny that even in a 5-run lead, with a 5-run lead late, they went to someone else besides Montero. So you said break in case of emergency. Monday's game was that. They were down to, they needed Montero to come up, and thankfully he got the job done. A pretty efficient inning, all things considered. So we'll wrap it there. That's it for part 1 of Stone Cold Stros. To listen to the full podcast, go to your favorite podcast app, and we'll have that posted a little later. And to watch part 2 of this conversation, we're going to have it posted on this channel on YouTube tomorrow. So check back on the channel later, and we'll be releasing that shortly. And as always, go Stros.